everyone, it's Miss Elaine from the Firehouse Art Center coming back with another class for Friday. Yay, it's Friday! So I'm super excited for the weekend. I hope you guys have some fun things planned. I know we are going to try and get out into the garden and plant stuff. Maybe vegetables, we're not really quite sure. But yeah, it's supposed to be a really great weekend here in Longmont, Colorado. So hopefully you guys have some fun things planned for the weekend too. Also planned for the weekend, I'm going to be at the gallery, Firehouse Art Center on 4th and Kaufman, from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Just in case anyone wants to stop by. There's a 5-person capacity and masks are mandatory, but we're open to people that want to come see the new exhibit. And our new exhibit is this really cool photography exhibit, but it's not like what you think of typically of photography. It's Pajo Mann's and Rebecca Aloisio's contemporary photography collage work. It's really super cool, and it will definitely challenge your ideas of what photography can be. So if you guys want to come by the gallery this weekend, we're open from 12 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday, and I will be there, so if you come by, you can come see me. Anyway, we are here for a multimedia class. I know, oh, and it just hit 1, so we can get started, but as I said before, my name is Miss Elaine. I'm with the Firehouse Art Center. This week was Space Week, and on Monday we did a drawing. Let's see if I can find it. I have a pile of all our artwork next to me, and we have all of these classes on our YouTube channel now. So if you want to go to the YouTube channel, you can see all the classes maybe that you might have missed. But this was from last week for kind of like wildlife and out in nature. So there's our landscape, our Zentangle landscape. We did the watercolor silhouette. I'm just going through some of our old stuff that we've done. This one was yesterday's, or I mean Wednesday's. So this was Galaxy with the red planet. This one was George Rodriguez, the blue dog. So this was a study on complementary colors. We did our watercolor technique polar bear parade collage. This was Monday's space drawing. We had our watercolor week with the sunflowers. Animals, we did cats and dogs. So, I mean, I just have this whole pile that's just growing, and I can imagine that you might have some piles too. And this one was one of our earlier ones. This was the Hidden Surprises drawing. And we had a couple of these that were super cool. Let me see if I can find. I really like this one. So these were fun because you could turn them into puppets too. So there was this guy, and you can open him up, and he's eating cookies. So this has been my issue during quarantine. I think this might be my puppet of me. Anyway, so these are just fun things that we've done throughout all of our virtual classes that we've had for the Firehouse. This was another one. So just some fun things that if you want to go back to our YouTube channel, you can check out some of the classes that we did from the beginning. There's our watercolor turtle. We did drawings of unicorns. I think this may have been my favorite class. That was the printing mermaids. Let's see. These were color studies for watercolor. And there's a whole bunch of them. But anyway, so today's our last class of Space Week, and we did drawing for Monday, and we did painting for Wednesday, and today we are going to be doing a sculpture. So we're going to be making salt dough first. We're going to be adding a little bit of math to our salt dough recipe. I think that cooking and modifying recipes are like the best way to get math in a fun way. But let me show you what we're doing today. So we're going to take this little guy. So this is my astronaut, and he just fits right there. And he actually stays, but once I paint him, I'm going to glue him on. But I'm going to show you guys how to make your own lunar landscape with your salt dough, and also make an aluminum foil armature to build your space guy. So an armature really is just a like a skeleton for your sculpture, and we're going to be making him with aluminum foil. So I'm going to give you guys time to get your supplies together. So you'll need aluminum foil, and I really try and get things that you know, you might have at your house already. So you might have them in your art supplies, you might have them in your craft room if you have one, or you might just have them in your kitchen. So you're going to need aluminum foil, you're going to need toothpicks. Now these are optional, you don't need toothpicks, but you know, you can have them to make the flag or to make holes in your lunar landscape. You're going to want a stick. I actually used this, which is a chopstick for my kitchen, which is really great because you have the smaller end to make small holes and the larger end to make like larger craters. Measuring cup. You'll need flour, all-purpose flour. Just a little tidbit of knowledge about Miss Elaine's family. We're all celiac here, but I do have all-purpose normal flour for my sculptures, but if you are allergic to wheat, or you're celiac as well, or you have any reactions to that, you can use gluten-free flour. That's totally fine. And you'll need salt, a mixing bowl. If you don't want to get your hands in there when it's all wet and squishy, you can use a mixing spoon. I like getting in there and mixing with my hands, so I don't have one. And you'll need some lukewarm water. So I just poured this before class. Oh, it's kind of cold now, but whatever, it'll do. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to mix our salt dough first. And I see some guys are watching live. Now the best thing about these live stream classes is you can watch live with me and ask me questions like, I think my salt dough is just a little bit too dry, or, you know, what happens if my astronaut's arm falls off, or something like that, you know. But it's great because you can ask me comments or questions live and I can answer them. Or if you're doing something at 1 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday when we do these live stream classes, you can always watch them later and create at your own convenience. So whether you come back to Facebook and find our classes, because they're always going to be on Facebook, or you go to our YouTube channel, because they'll be there as well, you know, you can create whenever you want. But anyway, I'm going to show you guys the recipe for, hi Julie, hi Joshua. So I'm going to show you the recipe for the salt dough. Now, here's where the math comes in, because our typical recipe for salt dough makes a lot of salt dough, and we don't need that much for today. So usually we do 1 cup of salt, 1 cup of water, and then 2 cups of flour. So you'll see that the amount that you use for salt, you want to double it for the flour, and then you want to use the same amount for the water. This recipe we're going to use less. So we're only going to do 1/4 of a cup, so a 1/4 cup of salt. That means, because this is 1 cup and 1 cup, we're going to do the same amount for water, so a 1/4 cup of water. And then, because the cups of flour is double the amount of the salt, we know that if we are going to use 1/4 cup of salt, we need double that amount of the flour. So it is 2 1/4 cups. So it's 1/4 cup plus 1/4 cup, which equals 2 1/4 cups. Or if you want to do that with the lowest common denominator in fractions, if you guys have studied that in math before, you'll know that that is a 1/2 cup. So we'll need a 1/4 cup of salt, a 1/4 cup of the water, and then 1/2 cup of flour. So now that we got our measurements that we need, and I'll remind you as we're going through, we're going to go ahead and mix it. And I'm going to turn my screen down so you can see me mixing it down here. So hold tight. Turn this down. And ta-da! That is my workspace. So once again, I'm at my house. So sometimes I like switch it up and I do it in the Firehouse, and sometimes I do it at my house, which is kind of cool. So I have two offices. But anyway, so here are my measuring cups, and I said 1/4 cup of salt. So let's do that first. So this is my 1/4 cup measurement. So whatever I measure in salt, I have to do the same in water. Okay. So this is my 1/4 cup. I'm gonna pour it in. Now this is my water, and I've already measured this, but I'm gonna pour it in here just to make sure. There's my 1/4 cup of water, and I'm gonna pour that in. Tap that out. Now, I need 2 of these for flour. So I am going to just cutting off the top of my bag so it's a little easier to reach in there. Okay, so this is my flour that I'm using, and I need 2 of my 1/4 cups for the flour. So when you measure it, you want to make sure you're not getting too much. So I flattened it out. There's 1/4 cup, and my second, okay? Okay, so I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to close up my flour because goodness knows I don't want this spilling everywhere. So you got to be responsible for our workspaces. There we go. And I've got salt closed up over there. Now I'm just going to go in with my hands and mix it. Now, as I said before, you can mix with a spoon if you want, but I like mixing with my hands because then you can kind of feel the consistency of your dough and see if it's coming together. Okay, so it is coming together. I'm smushing it around. So if you have the right consistency, you'll feel it. And when you start smushing it around, you'll see that not a lot is sticking to my fingers. If you get a lot sticking to your fingers and to your hands, you'll know that you need to add a little bit more flour because it's a little bit too wet. But don't add it too soon because sometimes you just need to make sure everything is all mixed in first before you start assessing whether you need to problem solve and add more flour or add more water. So a lot of art is solving problems, and when you're making salt dough or any kind of sculpting material, one of the problems that you might have to solve is whether it's too wet or too dry. Now this, I think, is pretty perfect because you'll see that as I'm molding it and holding it in my hands, it's not crumbling nor is it sticking to me. Okay, so now I have this ball of clay and I'm going to split it in half, just like that. Okay, so now I have 2 balls of clay. Okay, you're going to take one and you're going to leave it in the bowl. If you want, you can put a piece of aluminum foil over it because you don't want it to dry out. So see what I just did? I kind of covered it with the foil. And you're going to want to cover your workspace with another piece of foil. So, you know what? I think I might steal a little bit from this piece because I would rather short my planet than my astronaut. So I put a little piece back in there. So now I have this ball of my salt dough. I am going to move this so you guys can see. I'm going to create my lunar landscape by flattening it out. Like a big old cookie. Okay, now, if you have a toothpick, you can use it now. I'm going to find out where I want to put my flag, and I'm going to put it in just like that. So if you can't see it, it's so weird because it's like, there we go. That was a cool visual effect. Anyway, so there's my planet. Now I wanted to create the craters. Now to create the craters, I'm just going to take my knuckle like this, and I'm just going to poke it into the surface to create my big craters. Make sure you don't poke yourself with the toothpick that's there. Okay? Now if you have other tools like this chopstick, you can use that to make other kinds of craters. And if you want to use the smaller end, you can make even smaller craters. Okay, now that's all that is. Now my lunar landscape is basically done. I'm going to take out my toothpick, but you know, now I know that it goes right there. I don't want to leave my toothpick in when I bake it because it might get burnt, and we don't want that to happen. So my lunar landscape is finished. We're going to move on to our astronaut. So we're going to build our astronaut with the aluminum foil. So I'm going to move my lunar landscape to the top of my workspace. I don't need to do anything with it until I am ready to put my astronaut on it. So I'm going to take my bowl that has my clay in it, and I'm going to remove the aluminum foil. Now to create my astronaut, I am going to tear pieces of my aluminum foil, and I am going to start with the body of my astronaut, so the torso, so like where his chest is. And really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to smush the aluminum foil pretty tight into kind of like a cylinder shape, okay? So not a ball, kind of like a cylinder, like a can. So it'll look like that, okay? Then I am going to take my aluminum foil, and it's a piece about this big. Now, it's not an exact science, but I am going to wrap the body of my astronaut, and I am going to use the foil that's left underneath it to create a leg. So, because I wrapped the body of my astronaut, the leg is now attached to my torso. Do you see that? If I were to make just the leg and then try and like attach it somehow, it wouldn't really work. But since I wrapped the torso first, now my leg is part of the body of my astronaut, okay? Now I'm going to take this, which has the leg and the torso, and another piece of aluminum foil. Do the same thing. I'm going to create a second leg. So I'm going to wrap the torso first with the top part, and then I'm going to take this part underneath and form his other leg. And I'm squishing, you know, kind of tight because you don't want it to be too loose. So right now, this is what I have. Okay? So as I said, it's not an exact science. You're just trying to form legs for your astronaut and have them be attached to the body. Now that we have the legs, we're going to do the arms the same exact way, but this time, instead of having squares, we're going to have more of a rectangle piece. Okay? And if you end up having too much, you can always cut some of it off, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap my torso first, and then I'm going to squish the foil to create the arm. that's going to come out of the side. So it's like that. Okay? So you're building a little person. Now the reason why we're wrapping it, again, is so that the arm doesn't fall off. So even if I pull on these body parts right here, they're not going to fall off of my astronaut because I have taken it and surrounded the torso. So it has now become a part of my sculpture. Now, if you wanted to, what you could do is you don't even have to cover this with clay. You can just kind of have it be an astronaut on your lunar surface, just like that. Because it kind of looks like an astronaut suit already, because it is aluminum foil and shiny. But we are going to cover, I'm going to cover mine in clay. So now I have the second rectangle. For the other arm, I'm going to use it to wrap the torso and create his other arm, just like that. So he's coming together pretty well. So if this is your first time building an aluminum foil armature, don't worry if you're having some issues, you know, getting the aluminum foil to stick. It does take a couple of tries, and as always, the more practice you have, the better you are at doing it. So there are never any mistakes in art, only lessons. So don't get frustrated, just keep trying. So now I have my person with the legs and the arm, and the last thing that we need to do is the head. Now, the head sometimes falls off, I got to admit. But, you know, we're going to try and get it so that it stays on. Now, even if your metal parts, like your aluminum parts, do fall off, it's okay, because when you put the clay on, you can make them stay on better with the clay. But I'm just going to wrap the torso, and I'm going to smush my aluminum foil to create a head shape. Now, I'm going to cover this all with clay, so these are really just shapes. They don't have to look exactly like a person just yet. When we cover it with clay, we'll do more detail stuff, okay? So here's my person, and I am ready to put some salt dough on it. I'm going to wet my fingers a little bit, because that helps with creating this guy. I'm going to take some clay, some salt dough, out of my ball, and I'm going to start building it on top of my astronaut. So this astronaut is just a little bit smaller than that guy, but it should work the same. Okay, so as you can see, I'm adding clay to it, and I am using those pieces, that skeleton of the aluminum foil to help me create my sculpture. Now, you could totally do a salt dough sculpture without the foil structure underneath it, but with the foil structure, it is going to be more stable. You can kind of mold it a little bit better, and also you are limiting the thickness of your clay. Now, when you start getting thick portions of salt dough, you increase the chance of cracking. So keeping the salt dough thinner helps your clay sculpture not crack as much. Now, you will have to bake these before you paint them. So at the end of this class, I am going to paint the sculpture that I already baked. So you guys can just watch, or if you want, you can pause it, make your own sculpture, bake it, and then watch the second part of the class as I paint mine, so you can paint yours at the same time. Or you can just watch me paint mine and then go back and paint yours later. So totally two different ways of doing it. Okay, so now I have my little astronaut is now wearing like Salto pants. So I'm going to keep going. I'm wetting my fingers as I go and pinching off more clay as I need it. And so as you can see, I'm wrapping the aluminum foil and creating my astronaut as I go along. So this is his arm right here. I'm going to wrap it with clay. Now I keep calling it clay, but it's really just the Salto. So if you were using clay, it would be the same kind of thing. So armatures help give it stability. They also limit the amount of sculptural material that you need. So it does help in the cracking and the curing. So even if you were to use clay, the thinness of the material because of the armature inside would help with the cracking. Okay, so as I'm wrapping it, you'll see now there's only that little piece of aluminum foil showing. So I'm gonna, and my water's to the side of me, that's why I keep reaching over there. And it is almost fully covered. I need to bring my water so you guys can see. So when I use the water, I just dip my fingers in. Obviously, we're going to paint, and those are my brushes sitting in the water right there. But I like to wet my fingers because it helps to seal the clay and kind of smooth it out. So as I put the clay on, I smooth it out like this. Salto, clay, whatever. Okay, but you don't want to use too much water because then it gets too slimy and then it gets like just a big mess. Okay, so here is my cute astronaut. Yay! So another thing with the aluminum foil with the armature is you can actually move the body pieces. If you want to like adjust how they're standing, but sometimes that kind of damages the Salto around it. Okay, so I'm looking for my toothpick actually. I'm going to grab one of my toothpicks. And I'm going to do a little bit of detail work on this one. And what kind of detail? Well, I am just going to draw where his the glass part for his, where is it? There. Anyway, I just drew where his faceplate was. And if you want, you can draw like little lines on his suit. This is all optional. But it's fun. Okay, so now my guy is done. You can also add a jetpack to the back. So jetpack would just be shape a little rectangle kind of thing for his backpack. Now, once I'm done with this, I'm going to go back to our lunar landscape because we've got to build him a little foot pad for where his feet are going to go so that he actually stays on. As I said for mine, I have a little foot pad and he does actually, see, look how much clay I have left over. I totally can actually, I'm going to add a little bit more to his backpack. You can even add like a secondary layer of his backpack. So, I mean, if you have extra clay, you can build other cool stuff on top of him. So see, I just added a little a little oval for his face, and then his backpack is like that. Okay. So now we have our astronaut. I'm going to go back to our lunar surface. I am going to smush his feet so I know so that his feet are a little bigger. You got to give him moon boots. And I'm going to figure out where he's going to stand. Now remember, we had our flag right there. So I kind of want him near the flag. So I'm going to put him so he's like that, standing near the flag. So I'm going to figure out where his feet are. And you can kind of wiggle. And I am going to press in with my tool and kind of mark where his feet are. And then I can press in with my finger and my knuckle if I need to, and make little indentations where his feet go so that he can stand there and maybe stand even without glue after you guys fire him. Okay, so now I have the little pieces, the little places where his feet go, and I will bring this up to the screen so you guys can see. I'm going to put my guy over here. Ta-da! So his feet will end up going right there. Okay, so I'm going to take this out. I made this on the aluminum foil so that I actually can just take this now and put it on a pan and put it in an oven with the guy next to it, just like this, space person, because it could be a guy or a girl. And I'm going to put it into an oven at 250 degrees for 1 hour. Okay, so kiddos, tell your mom or your dad or your grandmother, whoever is there with you, an adult, can you please put this in the oven for an hour at 250 degrees, okay? So that's gonna go in the oven, and I'm gonna pretend that I just put mine in the oven, and I'm gonna bring out the one that I made before. So here's the one that I made before. I'm gonna paint mine, my astronaut, and my lunar surface. I got some paint ready right here. So if you guys want to watch, or you want to pause and paint along with me after yours is baked, you can do that. But I've mixed some black and white together to make a gray. I'm going to paint my lunar surface. So I suppose this doesn't even have to be the moon. It could be anything. The astronaut could have landed on Mars. You can paint the surface any color you want. Now I remember that this is where my feet are. So I'm actually not going to paint that part. Just so that I know that's where I'm going to put the glue, so that my astronaut goes right there. But I'm going to paint around it. So hopefully you guys were able to make your armature and then put the salto around it. If you guys have any questions, whether you're watching this with me or you're watching this a little bit later after we filmed it, let me know if you have any questions or if you come into any problems in creating your lunar landscape or your astronaut. So I'm painting around it right now. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and rinse that. I actually have this paint right here, which is kind of like sparkly paint. And I'm going to add a little of the sparkly paint to the surface inside the craters because I just want to have some definition. Sometimes when you paint it all one color, you lose a little bit of that texture. And, you know, it's kind of fun to have some shadows in there. And also, it's kind of fun to add a little bit of sparkle. Okay, so hopefully that is a good amount of contrast. close that up, make sure it doesn't dry out. Always close up your paints. Always put lids on your markers. Okay, now what? I'm gonna paint, oh man, I totally wasn't supposed to use all that white. There we go. I'm gonna paint the astronaut now. Now, the astronaut dried pretty white, so Sculpt's pretty light colored, so I might not actually have to add any white to him. Let me see what it looks like when I paint white on him. It's not even really that much of a difference, so I might not actually use the white. What I'm going to do is going to get my super teeny tiny brushes. If you have super teeny tiny brushes, you can use super teeny tiny brushes. If you don't and you want to do some details, you can use a toothpick instead. But I am going to paint his faceplate. And I am going to paint just little details around the astronaut. Now, it gets kind of hard when you're painting something and you have to like hold on to it, but you might get a little paint on your hands. It's okay. As long as you're using washable paint. This is tempera paint, so it comes off. Acrylic paint comes off too, but you just might have to scrub a little bit harder. So I'm just putting some details on my astronaut. And turning him over to where his backpack is. So you have to wait until he's fully cooked and dry to paint him. And there he is. So once everything dries, I am going to put glue on his feet, and I'm going to put his feet right in there. And then I'm going to take my toothpick, and I'm going to put my toothpick right in here. And I'm going to put a flag on my toothpick, and I'm going to have my astronaut on a lunar surface with the flag, and it will be all done. So that is it for the class today. If you have any clay left over that you want to keep, make sure you wrap it in saran wrap or put it in a plastic bag. And you can make all sorts of different creations with it later. If you have painted, make sure you rinse out your brushes and rinse out your glass, and do not leave them in the water face down. You gotta leave them up so that the brushes are up, the bristles are up so it dries. And I think that is it. So I'm going to turn the screen up, and actually my screen's gone black, so I can't see myself. So hopefully when I turn this up, you'll still be able to see me. I think you should be able to see me. I'm going to tell you guys what we're doing next week. So next week is Sports Week. So I said last week we could choose between space and sports and superheroes, all S's. I don't know why. But we did space this week, then we're going to do sports, and then superheroes will be the week following. We are going to keep doing these online classes until we decide that we can start having classes again at the Firehouse. So keep coming back. We're here live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 p.m. Obviously, great thing about live stream classes is you don't have to watch it live. You can watch and create at your own convenience. Just whenever you are watching it, if you make the art project, send it to the Firehouse so we can put it in the album for online classes. I love seeing your artwork. It is the biggest reason I love teaching kids, is just seeing what you guys create. So there are 3 ways you can send me your photos of your artwork. You can email them to me at Elaine, ELAINE, at firehouseart.org. You can post them in the event page that is related to this class. So if you had pictures of your astronaut and lunar landscape, you would just find the event on the Firehouse Art Center Facebook page for Salt Dough Astronaut, and you can post the pictures there. Or you can send the pictures to me on Facebook to Elaine Waterman, and I will pull the photos from that and I will add to the Facebook album on our Firehouse Art Center Facebook page. So if you haven't checked them out yet, go to our Facebook page, Firehouse Art Center, and look at the album with all the artwork that everyone's created. I have seen some amazing samples come in. You guys are amazing artists. I love seeing everything that you create, and you know what's really cool is I even see the improvement in some of the projects that we've done in the beginning to the techniques that I'm seeing that are coming in now. So that's really super great. So anyway, that is it for today. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope that you have a fabulous weekend. If you have time and you want to come see the show at the gallery, come see me. The gallery is open from 12 to 5. You don't have to make an appointment for the weekend, just during the weekdays, but we'll be there from 12 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. Come in if you want to see Paho Mann's or Rebecca Aloisio's super cool contemporary photography. They definitely challenge the idea of what photography is, and it's just really amazing the stuff that they're doing. So I'll sign off now. My name's Miss Elaine. I'm from the Firehouse Art Center. Thank you for coming to create with me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. Sorry, it's my salt dough hands. Bye.